Hello. I hope everybody can hear me okay. So my name is Mary Nevin and I'm the Programme Chair of the MSc in Specialist Nursing in DCU. And I'm going to spend about the next 15 minutes taking you through our programme here in DCU. So what is our MSc in Nursing about? Let me just move on to the next slide here. Okay, so the goals of our Masters in Specialist Nursing in Dublin City University is basically a response to the service provision needs of and the population health needs in Ireland. So we developed this new Masters in Specialist Nursing several years ago. So that was informed by Sláinte Care, which is our current national policy for healthcare. And it's also been informed by the Shaping the Future HSE and the National Service Plan from 2021. And as part of these goals for service provision of healthcare in Ireland, there was a need to diversify the training, the education needs of nurses in our country to meet those goals in our population. And that's about diversifying the educational preparation so that we have nurses who are practicing at basic level, basic grade, but also that we have nurses who have specialist qualifications and who are eligible to go into more clinical nurse specialist posts and clinical management posts, and who are critical thinkers at master's level. So the goal of the programme is to prepare nurses for a workforce that will essentially effectively provide for current and future healthcare and societal needs. So if you're a nurse and you're looking at this presentation here and thinking, well, I do have career goals, I would like to critically analyse and reflect on my practice and see, where that might take me with my career and what posts I might seek out in the coming years. You need to think about that, your own professional development needs. So the purpose of this programme really is to embed your learning and your research within your own professional practice and ensure that the knowledge and understanding gained through the Masters can be integrated into organisations where you work and systems that you work in. And I think that's really important for us as clinicians. We make decisions about seeking further education and training, but it does have to be relevant, it has to be pragmatic, it has to support our clinical work and our organisation and service needs, and very importantly, our career development. So that was where the background to our Masters in Specialist Nursing came from. So the structure of the programme, and that's really important to think about if you want to, if you're considering further education. So you'll enter the programme via two specialist pathways, one or the other. So you will decide, essentially, I would like to develop specialist competencies in either chronic disease management or women's health. So these specialist pathways, again, have very clearly come back from feedback from the Office of the Nursing and Midwifery development units and the national directives within healthcare. So there's significant population needs in chronic disease and in women's health, and these are typically conditions or populations that have been traditionally underserved, or the health needs are changing. So you will enter in one of these pathways and you will decide, well, for my work, where I work in my organisation, these are health needs I'm seeing in this population, so women. And it could be you may work in intellectual disability and you may see, well, we're not attending to the needs of women who are entering menopause with ID, who have an intellectual disability. Or maybe you're a service where you're seeing significant comorbidities and chronic diseases and you'd like to know more at that level as a specialist practitioner. So these are one of the two pathways you will choose. And again, people think, well, what will I be learning when I enter this pathway? So, for example, if I want to do a master's degree or a specialist qualification in chronic disease, what does it entail? Well, essentially, you will be doing two modules which are very specific to your pathway. So you will do either two modules in chronic disease or two modules in women's health. So, for example, the chronic disease module is there to critically explore the policy, the research, the evidence base on chronic disease, which is a population focus. The women's health modules have been developed in line with key stakeholders, looking at the normal anatomy and physiology of the female, working from menarche right to perimenopause, menopause, all the different stages. And, as you progress, you would be looking at abnormal conditions, of gynecological conditions. The core modules that everybody will undertake together, regardless of your pathway, include Health Communications Digital Solutions. So this is a module that's been developed in response to some of the national frameworks for digital competency in e-health. So, it's very much designed to equip nurses in the future to be able to explore and critically analyse large big data, as we call it, and aspects of e-health, which are becoming a lot more commonplace, particularly in chronic disease and for women's health. You'll also undertake a module in research and evaluation methods, where you'll explore the common ways that we critically analyse our evidence base, how we identify problems and go about, answering research questions using different methods. There's also a module on leadership and change management. We want to develop nurses in the future who can critically explore, central tenets of leadership and change in an organisation and have those critical skills to make change. There's also, in year 2, a practice development project or a research dissertation, where if you undertake the master's, you'll have the opportunity to engage in some primary research to actually tackle a research problem in your organisation. You'll also have optional modules in this master's programme. So you can opt to take either an optional module in palliative care or person-centred dementia. And these very much focus on those conditions and those aspects. Or you could take an optional module on advanced physical assessment. So that module will equip you to look at history taking, conduct a significant advanced physical assessment on the major systems for someone. Okay, so they are the types of modules that you'll undertake if you come onto this Masters in Specialist Nursing. So, how do you progress through this programme? Well, before we talk about that, I do need to talk about your clinical competency. So as a nurse who wants to take a master's in specialist nursing, this is a very clinically orientated master's degree program. So the whole point of this is that you're in practice and you're applying your learning to your practice and to your organisation. So the core competencies of this specialist master's program is based on the post-registration specialist nursing and midwifery education program standards for specialist practice. And embedded within that is a clinical competency requirement, which of course makes sense if you're interested in pursuing a role as a clinical nurse specialist in chronic disease or women's health. So embedded in your 2 main specialist modules is a clinical competency component, which does need to be assessed as either a pass-fail. But anybody on this program is working in practice, is engaging in those competencies on a daily basis. If you're interested in women's health, but you'd like some specialist knowledge, there is plenty of opportunities to facilitate, a short-term clinical competency placement outside of your organisation, if that can be facilitated for you within it, where you can get some clinical competency in your specialist area. For example, you may spend a few days with an advanced nurse practitioner in menopause and work with her in her clinic or his clinic. But there is a clinical competency element to this programme. So how is it delivered? Well, it is a blended learning strategy, and this is really important. Again, if you're a nurse on this call, you're interested in further education, these are the pragmatic concerns. Well, how will I secure time off? And do I have to be in DCU a lot? And what's the level of engagement in theoretical content that I need to do? Well, let me reassure you that it is a blended learning strategy. So the vast majority of your learning will take place online, your theoretical learning. And the requirement to be in DCU is typically 3 to 4 full days per semester. So it's not massive. You're talking about potentially 2 days at the start of a semester, which would be September, and 2 days towards the end of that semester, which would be probably November. And then the following semester would be similar. But the vast majority of your learning is through online lectures, webinars, seminars, tutorials, online activities, and things like that. Your weekly synchronous lectures are delivered using Zoom, which is an online video-based streaming platform. And typically it's about 4 hours online teaching per week. And then the other content is called asynchronous, so it's typically pre-recorded. But just to reassure you that, there are no exams in this program where you have to sit down and write a paper. All of the assessments in this program are via continuous assessment. So it would be, it's project-based or it's assignment-based. Or if it's your clinical competency, it's just a case of pass or fail and looking at those domains of competency that the Nursing and Midwifery Board prescribe. So that's the type of program delivery here. So progression and exiting, and that's important as well. You may be thinking, well, I am interested in a master's degree, but are there other options here? Well, yes. If you're doing a master's degree in specialist nursing, of course, it's 90 credits and it's over 2 years part-time here in DCU. So you'll undertake both of your chronic disease or your women's health specialist pathway modules. And I'll talk about that in a minute at the master's level. But you may decide, well, look, I want a postgraduate certificate in specialist nursing from DCU. So you may exit having taken your 2 specialist pathway modules and just 1 other module. So 30 credits would get you a postgraduate certificate in specialist nursing. But you may actually get a postgraduate diploma in specialist nursing. You may decide to exit at that point and say, well, a diploma is what I'm looking for, a diploma is what I'm funded for, and that's 60 credits, and that's a major award, and that would involve taking both of your specialist modules, 1 optional module, and 3 of those core modules. So that's 60 credits, and you would have a postgraduate diploma in specialist nursing. If it's the master's, then it's the full 90 credits. So you would move to your year 2 and you would do 90 credits. So that would include the dissertation or the practice development project. Okay, so if this is something that you're interested in, that you'd like to think about further, again, I always think, I did my master's degree part-time. These are the sorts of questions I thought about. Well, who will fund it? Who do I need to talk to in my organization? So I would encourage you at the very early steps, sit down and think about your career progression. Is this something that would be useful for your career progression? A grad dip or a master's in nursing, those critical thinking skills. So I'd begin by talking with my line manager or the person that's over the funding that can happen in your organization. Sit down and tell them your goals or your objectives. And then you can discuss funding options. So the Nursing and Midwifery Planning and Development Units typically fund HSE organisations. But if you're a Section 38, again, talk to your line manager because funding from the NNPD can always be secured after that. So your local organisation, if you're Section 38, would fund it and they can seek the funding from the NNPD afterwards. So there are funding options there. I would also encourage you to visit the course page, and I've left the link there. But if you go to dcu.ie and go to the school and go to our postgraduate in specialist nursing options, have a look at that. Look at the modules in more detail. Look at the structure. Think about the commitments and think about your interest in those modules and what it would entail. My caveat to this presentation here today is that we are subject to academic review here at the moment with our master's programs. So there could be slight changes. So it's important to look at that after Christmas. I'm always here and I'm always contactable as well if you'd like to know more about our programs for their Masters in Specialist Nursing. My email address is there, so please do get in touch. Okay, so I want to thank you sincerely for your time and for listening to the presentation. And I could take any questions if people have them.